What if I told you that some of the very best ways to predict how long you'll live aren't found in some fancy high-tech lab? They're actually simple movements you could probably test right now. So let's dive in and decode what your own body might be telling you about your future. It sounds like the setup for a bad joke, right? But believe it or not, scientists have actually tried to answer this exact question. And it's this, well, kind of morbid way of getting at a really powerful truth about our health. So what's the answer? So here's what they did. Researchers followed over 1,700 men, all over the age of 70, to see if there was a real, measurable link between how fast they walked and, well, their mortality. The whole idea was to find that one specific speed that best separated the people who survived from those who didn't. And this is the number they came up with, 0.82 meters per second. Now, to put that in perspective, that's roughly 2 miles per hour. It's a pretty casual stroll. And that specific speed turned out to be the perfect cutoff point, the line in the sand that best predicted who was most at risk. The takeaway from this is pretty wild. According to this study, men who could walk just a little bit faster than this speed were 1.23 times less likely to pass away during the follow-up. It's almost like when it comes to living a long life, you really can't outrun death, or at least walk a bit faster than he does. So, yeah. Outpacing the Reaper is one thing, but there's another incredibly simple test that tells us just as much, maybe even more about our health. And this one has absolutely nothing to do with our legs. Let's see how this next piece fits into the puzzle. We're talking about hand grip strength, or HGS for short. And yeah, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a quick test of how hard you can squeeze your hand. But this one simple action is an amazingly powerful window into our overall health and even our biological age. Get this. A machine learning model crunched the numbers on 30 different health variables, and it found something pretty remarkable. Your grip strength turned out to be a better predictor of your health than a lot of the usual suspects we always hear about, like your BMI or even your systolic blood pressure. It's a really potent sign of your body's underlying vitality. So, what's the number to watch? Well, a huge study with over 6,700 people figured out these specific cutoffs. For men, a grip strength dipping below 32 kilograms was a red flag. For women, it was below 19 kilograms. And these aren't just arbitrary numbers. They are directly tied to an increased risk of mortality. And the difference this makes is, honestly, it's staggering. People who had low hand grip strength, so below those numbers we just saw, had a risk of all-cause mortality that was 3.42 times higher. That is a massive, massive difference. Okay, so we've looked at walking speed, we've looked at static strength in your hands. Now we're going to move to a test that kind of combines strength, balance, and mobility all into one fluid movement. It's called the sitting rising test, and yep, it's another super powerful predictor. This is one you can probably picture yourself doing right now, and it's a direct challenge to your functional fitness. You know, the kind of strength and balance you actually use in your day-to-day life. So, how's it work? The whole thing is scored out of 10 points. You start with 5 points just for sitting down on the floor, and you get another 5 points for getting back up. Here's the catch. Every time you use a support, like putting a hand down or a knee or your forearm, you lose 1 point. And if you get a little wobbly, you lose half a point. The goal, of course, is a perfect 10. And trust me, the stakes on this one are high. A study looked at people from ages 51 to 80 and found that those who scored in the absolute lowest range, we're talking 0 to 3 points, had a 5 to 6 times higher risk of dying during the study than the folks who scored in the highest range of 8 to 10. It is a really stark measure of your body's overall physical resilience. Okay, so up to now, we've been looking at things we can see on the outside. How fast you walk, how hard you squeeze, how well you can move. But really, those are just the results of what's going on with your internal machinery. So now let's pop the hood and look at a couple of key metrics that measure the efficiency of your body's engine. First up is something called VO2 max. This is basically the peak performance rating for your heart and lungs. The better your body is at grabbing oxygen from the air and getting it to your muscles during hard work, the higher your VO2 max is. It really is the perfect measure of your body's engine efficiency. This quote from longevity expert Dr. Peter Attia just says it all. You don't have to become some elite athlete. Just making the improvement to go from the low category to below average, from the bottom quarter to the next one up, is linked with cutting your risk of dying from any cause in half. That is an incredibly powerful lever to pull for your health. All right, our second internal metric is heart rate variability, or HRV. Now, you might think a perfectly steady, metronome-like heartbeat is the ideal, right? Well, it's actually the complete opposite. More variability is a good thing. It shows your nervous system is really adaptable, that it can switch gears quickly from fight-or-flight mode to rest and digest mode. Think of it as the ultimate gauge of how well your body is handling stress. And this slide just paints a really clear picture. Look at the huge difference between the numbers for a resilient, good state versus a state of exhaustion. The total power, which measures your overall variability, just plummets, and the balance completely shifts away from the high-frequency, recovery-focused part of your system towards the very low-frequency signals that are linked with chronic stress. It's like a snapshot of your body's internal battery being completely drained. Okay, so we've looked at walking speed, grip strength, mobility, and a couple of key internal engine metrics. So what's the common thread here? What does all this actually mean for you, and how do we put it to use? So let's connect all the dots. First, your simple, everyday movements are basically a constant stream of health data. Second, those simple tests, your walking speed, your grip, your ability to get up off the floor, they aren't just party tricks. They are scientifically proven predictors of your longevity. Third, those internal numbers like VO2 max and HRV, they reveal your body's deep underlying resilience. But here's the most important takeaway of all. None of this is your destiny. These are not fixed numbers. Every single one of these metrics is something you can change. These simple tests, they give us a language. They help us understand the story our bodies are telling us every single day. They give us clear, actionable data that empowers us to stop guessing about our health and start measuring it, tracking it, and actively improving our chances for a long, vibrant life. So the only real question left is, are you ready to listen?